Series 93-100, items 1 through 26. If, to your mind, thinking is not synonymous with change, you do not yet understand. Survival seems an arduous task only to those struggling to survive. A much more difficult undertaking is for the civilized to later try and stay civilized. Relationships, a mythical epic in 25 words or less. The relationship of man's neurons to his hormones is not unlike that between eggs and an electric blender. A man who had been attempting something unusual one day thought, perhaps I should think up a brand new name for what it is that I do. But then further thought, except that I don't know what it is that I do. Individual mental discoveries. Orgasms for the mind. All originality is ad hoc, and when it's not, it's spoiled and spent. Trying to understand the purpose of human life via extraterrestrial explanations, as in the case of religion, is like trying to convert a bird to felineism. Two views. If you're simple, you can have more fun in life if you don't try to think too much. If you're not, you can't. Another verse of brief history. As man became civilized and neurons began to apparently exercise some authority, they said to man, "Calm down." Then later told him, "Get more excited," in certain regards. What a verse, what a song. One of the prime responsibilities of institutions is to make the ephemeral seem permanent. At sea level, there's always another side to everything. For their graduation march, the students on this one island chose the song "No Man is a Mainland." Is that a mortarboard you're wearing on your head, or are you just glad to think about me? Beyond the survival level, just what is human existence other than a mental distraction, a form of entertainment? Though note that some entertainments are more enjoyable than others. A law that is not malleable is a sucker law. I don't think we'll take time to stop and ask for a show of hands about who might obey such. Well, one man, after taking note of his mind's comments regarding everyday life, said to it, "As sophomorical sarcasm, I guess it's mildly amusing. But if you're intending it as meaningful criticism, I've got some bad news for use. 'Tis only in the heat and distraction of the public forum that an impotent man can be praised for announcing his celibacy. From a thinker's view, all public declarations are suspect. If what seems to be intellectual truth, the intellectual truth of reality, does not continually change in you, then you are mentally dead and no longer capable of change yourself." How to tell where you live relatively. Those the more civilized can be deeper pained in their mind than in their body. There is a component to man's life, customarily unnoted, which I call the invisible ingredient, whose existence assures that there is always another explanation for everything. One way to try and get by in the city: hold your nose and strike a pose. A man who does not become his own private thinker becomes his own living dinosaur in his own lifetime. In a land of divided loyalties where hormones and neurons struggle for supremacy, the king should stay jumpy and alert. What is the past? Or at least with a real thinker, what should it be, other than a small grease spot in the highway that he passed over and forgot about years and years ago? Two things do plain talk and point-blank thought reveal: another view, another reality. Harsh thoughts take too long to digest. Criticism equals gas. Civilization. That city professional who can both stick his finger in your eye and make you feel guilty about flinching. Civilization. Civilization. Guilt. The little death. Series 93-107. Items 1 through 47. To physically survive, even non-thinking creatures must be dissatisfied part of the time. Compare this to humans. In the mental run of the city, while encouraging neurons to roam freely, keep hormones local and nearby. If only the dumb can be insulted, then only a thinker's mind can break his heart. Many are rats who, if they're called squirrels, start dreaming of life in the trees. If you still believe that first came Christmas and then the anticipation of Christmas, you're probably also saving up to buy some fancy ribbon for the day when your thin matted tail miraculously blossoms into luxurious fur. Life says, I can wait, and man adds, I can too. From the stores of collective thinking comes mental saccharin in response to man's longing for sweets. The human civil mind. Radio's first all bad news station. Myths, drugs, and dreams of tomorrow. Signals of man's continuing urge to go from governmentally controlled analog to digital, and finally to unregulated, individually based forms of programming and reception. Once man is civilized, and indeed a bear in a morning coat, he then, understandably, begins to believe that we are not as we seem. Yeah. Why is it so difficult to think transcendentally? Because the mind is not given to receive instructions regarding suicide. Many unusual things make sense until you think about them, and then it's too late. Life thanks you, your mind thanks you, and you and I thank you. The problem with all religions and philosophies is that they keep talking about the same things over and over and over. Yes, and the same with words too. And thank you again. The thinking ordinarily operative in man's mind is like a rental car that comes with its own fleas. Mortal reports two types: calibrated surveys and anecdotal. The backbone of life's merry men and stalwart warriors are those who eat, drink, and make a bit of mischief and think no more about it than is minimally necessary. How a bear in a tux could see if he could see past the tux. After survival, all bets are off. Hormones can make you feel worse than anything, and neurons make you believe otherwise. Just because a thinker may use examples from everyday life doesn't mean that he doesn't know any more than that. A man thought, I am made up of a bunch of small plastic parts. He noted this in apparent contradistinction to simply having a terminal illness. Intellectual seriousness can be redefined using but two words. Bad news. But what if we looked at the human mind as a kind of early warning system? Then you'd be ready for a more direct perception of just what bad news really is. Cats are only impressed by birds if the birds can frighten them with their singing. Some of you might like to remember that. There's some follow-up coming to that one. Partisan thought. The collective form of sexual reproduction for the mind. If you reside in the city, death, by comparison, makes everything else look bad. Note, however, the dread of death makes even death seem shabby. What this has to do with the everyday operations of the human mind is something that its everyday operations have no interest in hearing about. Why else would I even bring it up? And now a good news interlude. You can't come apart at the seams if you have no seams. A thinker can always mentally turn life inside out. Civil definition time. A mystic. A dumb man who just won't admit it. Okay, truth time. A mystic. An otherwise ordinary man who just can't bear the fact. Truth, oh careless truth. A mystic. A grizzly bear attempting to fly who still has trouble climbing trees. Truth, oh heartless truth. Fact. Originally, everyone was dumb and enjoyed climbing trees. Fact. Basically, we're all still ordinary and still irritated by it. Fact. A bear is not a dazzling bear who doesn't dream of sprouting wings. Not having much to do in life can give you a lot to do. A man thought, my mind is like an always open ballroom inside of me, to which I was never formally invited. Psychological ills. What occurs when birds fly too far from the cats? I don't guess I was actually expecting a horseshoe of roses from the Psychiatric Association. Or from the Cheshire breeders. Humor that is anecdotally based is always personal and local and thus far too limited to actually be funny or informative. If men realized just how mechanical all of life, including their intellectual one, really is, would they continue to make effort? Nay, the better question is, even with such new understanding, what additional choices would they then have? The above verbal byplay does not represent the concept of determinalism at its most harsh and unyielding, nor at its most vague and theoretical. It simply represents it. The human mind, as perceived by the human mind, is this reality's sole effect that has no stable cause, or else is its only cause that has no idea of its own power and potential. Either way, a singular modern exhibit in an otherwise strayed museum. There's a place in every solar system where all ideas and words are produced. Without language, man is nothing. Without haircuts, linoleum manufacturers, wasted. One day life told some atoms some secrets, but they knew them already. Does repeating help? Who am I doing? I used to keep doing the Geesenslaw brothers. Human thought. A ball of twine that has no end, that has no start, and in fact may not exist. Prove it, prove it. I can't. Then prove its opposite. You know I can't do that either. Then is that not our proof? Men only trip when they're out of town. You heard me correctly. Naked bears never stumble. In one sense, men enjoyed the merry-go-round running in their head, in the sense of them considering the apparent alternative. EFG. E, the majority is always right. F, life is always right. G, life favors the majority, which is why they made so many of them. Question, point, question. Who but a horseless heedman goes against the grain for no obvious gain? When cats get sick, the birds will immediately explain how they had nothing to do with it. The ill must speak of their ills, and when clever, will do so metaphorically. Reload, ready, aim. A mystic. A man with a hobby that's driving him crazy, and he'd like to share with you. If we were permitted to think of each thing only once, where would man be today? Where would you be? All ideas not the product of point-blank thought, nor delivered in plain talk, will perforce be presented euphemistically. Beavers speak only in beaver, likewise man. The collective and the alternative. Only the individual can ever understand. A man thought, I myself must be a myth, since my life thus far has concerned an alleged person. At the most rudimental level, everyone knows who they are on the basis of knowing where they are. That is, they look at their body and they know that they're in there somewhere. And for most, that's enough. What gives with you anyway? Dogmas, philosophies, and belief systems are all stripes. Of all stripes are like overcoats for most, straitjackets for some, and mental alarm clocks for a few who roam the peripheral alleys of the city. Being alive is serious enough without you taking your awareness of it so seriously. Beasts in clothes enjoy hearing men talk, even if they are only minimal participants. Subtle self-reference is still self-reference. All city minds, be they scientists, critics, or academians, know only what hormones want them to know. Everything in a thinker's life eventually gets retired and replaced, including the thinker himself. Anecdotal info is an excuse for having no info. Another potentially stinging, though non-fatal definition. A thinker. An imaginary being dreamed up by thinkers. In man's mental butcher shop, all ideas weigh the same, but what ho! Whose thumb is that on the scale? Only men believe that they're ever shortchanged and overcharged. Only men are going anywhere. One day, one thinker got together and beat up all the other thinkers in the world. People aren't funny. Life is. All right. To physically survive, even non-thinking creatures must be dissatisfied part of the time. Compare this to humans. Do we need to? Must we? The whole idea that I'd been throwing around about thinking being fun and partisan thought is not thought, and that people do not really think, and that all they do is run according to all the mechanical, automatic influences that drive not only cats and hormones, but people at the physical and survival level, and also higher on up. How high? How high can you go? How high can you think about? And all of that would strike anyone who followed that kind of line of reasoning to the point that they would have to assume that that means that there is an alternative. That means that there at least is implicitly something amiss here, that it does not have to be that way. That is, that you just think according to whatever drives everyone else to think. That can't be it. Okay? Item 1. How else can it be? What is thinking other than to be dissatisfied at another level? And me saying compare this to humans, the first line, to physically survive, even non-thinking creatures must be dissatisfied part of the time. Non-thinking creatures, how often do they even wake up, move around, unless they're dissatisfied? Which is why they have better unions than humans, and by all accounts, can sleep 80% of their life away. All the way from dogs to house cats to lions. If they're not dissatisfied, they're normally asleep. At least threatening to go to sleep, resting their eyes in a serious manner. There is a reality to what I was trying to point out that you can use, which some of you caught the other night, that I pointed out that the body can be satiated easily if you're just ordinarily sane. All you do, if you're hungry, you eat. You quit eating, and right then your stomach is no longer dissatisfied. Can take a nap. Same with sex. But notice, the mind never goes to sleep. Even when you go to sleep, your mind doesn't go to sleep. You can be, the overriding passion of survival at some particular moment could be hunger, and you eat. And your hunger ceases, and it takes a nap. And what does your mind then do? It immediately jumps to, boy, am I horny. Or boy, I wish I could take a nap after such a meal. There's a whole series of historical dreams are built into the operations of how man progresses, that under many guises, religious, mystical, philosophical, now psychological, self-improvement with no tinges of any mysticism or cultism, just attempts for one to bring one's mind under control, improve one's memory, be able to do fancy decorations around your window without spending a large amount of money. Maybe I'm getting several of them confused. I don't. It's hard to keep up with contemporary culture. Or did it have something to do with the Ginsu knife number 3. To physically survive, you must be, part of the time, dissatisfied. There's this continuing belief, unstated perhaps, most of the time in these words, that the mind is unduly dissatisfied. All the way from religious to psychological. That I worry too much, I think too much, I keep worrying about the same things. I am every form of human activity that is not directly related to survival. People will believe. People, all you have to do is ask them, and they will say, I do think about what it is you brought up too much. And it should be, I shouldn't do that. I should take some sort of course. If I could afford it, I should see a psychiatrist, or at least I would just bring my own attention under some kind of control. Like I'm always worrying about my wife running around on me. I'm always jealous of my wife. I'm always worried about the economy is going to fall apart. I worry about things that, in a sense, I've got no business worrying about. You can get people to say that under reasonable conditions. But is that true? Is that operationally valid? No. Why else would ordinary people believe it? You're supposed to know that by now. If they believe it, forget it. You are not going to bring the mind under some sort of control. Which is why there's always a demand for it. There's always a market. All you got to do is stand up and say it's a brand new course, the Transylvania Mind Control System. It's where you move just beyond this kind of witty area of a man with a Latin name. I don't know why I do such things as that. To survive. No. They can call it a mind control system. And my little jokes about how to improve your memory, all of that is still based upon the same thing, that in some way, and they understand that it does not actually have to do with literal education. Because the more they educated, I don't have the figures, but I'm sure I'm correct, the greater percentage of those in analysis are those with higher levels of education. So that, but it's a belief that we could all be saner. We could all be under more personal control, all the way from bad habits to bad thinking habits. You know, bad behavioral habits or just bad thinking habits. The mind, let me ask you the retort. Why does no one notice that no one's mind is ever satisfied? That the damn thing won't even go to sleep. I mean, some of you really kind of laughed and wanted to take mental notes 2 or 3 nights ago. No one ever notices that. I mean, everybody knows you dream, but what do they do with it? Do I have to point out? Hate to make humanity look worse than they are. What did they do with the idea? They say, well, how we know it? Everybody dreams. And what do they do with that information? That knowledge that, yeah, we all dream. And you think, well, what have you done with it? Well, we have people studying it, and we're trying to analyze it. Well, is anything kind of more direct and just kind of right in your face about, I don't know what you mean. We're analyzing it. We're doing statistics on how often people dream about certain things. We're collecting much new data. But, I mean, is there anything over the fact that everybody does dream? I mean, does it make you just suddenly go, ooh? And they go, well, no. Well, why should it? No. It's just one damn metaphor after another. Metaphor, symbolism, allegory, But wait a minute. We already established that. Well, here's the one that I did not get any recognition, as I suspected, from any organized or even semi-organized arm of the psychiatric community. Once man is civilized, and indeed has become a bear in a morning coat, a grizzly bear dressed up, we're civilized, he then understandably begins to believe and just point out We are not as we seem. Not trying to attribute or contribute to collective humanity's apparent woes, but may I point out this, some of you kind of giggled and smirked, this is the highlight right now. We're up to the absolute avant-garde, collectively, of human intelligence and insight. This is it. According to them. I'm taking their word for it. At least in the Western world, it's fitting for the complete planet, but along came the 20th century, Freud, some of his family and followers, and now we've built upon that good, solid, finally, non-mystical, deterministic basis, in the true sense of it, that we have built from that. I mean, nowadays that is an absolute sign. That would be the benchmark, minimally, that you are civilized, educated, and sophisticated. That you understand, well, hey, if there's one thing we can say for certain about man, one thing and one thing only, it's this: we are not as we seem. Remember my picture, which I also submit, although psychiatry hasn't seen fit in the last couple of weeks to borrow liberally, from my pictures, but that is being civilized. We're bears, warthogs, and other forms, all dressed up. And as soon as they get dressed up good, get a suit that fits fairly well, and you got this bear here in a tuxedo, what's one of the first things he observes? We are not as we seem. Who in the hell is that saying that? Why is it so difficult to think transcendentally with no ordinary mystical baggage attached thereto, but to think beyond the obvious, to think beyond that which seems rooted absolutely in physical cause and effect? In other words, to be able to think truly poetically, to think in some way that might, God forbid, tell you something new. Why is it so difficult? Well, of course, I know that I have served this up in many different ways, and the question here was answered because the mind is not given to receiving instructions regarding suicide. That is not actually allegorical. Well, I guess it is, because the closer point-blank telling would be because the mind can't hear anything else. Because why is it so difficult to think transcendentally? The real answer is because the mind can't do it. Which I agree is pretty point-blank. But most people would hear that and they go, well, boy, this is real interesting. To ask, why aren't people happy? Well, because they're not. Well, all right. Why am I so ugly? Because you don't look any better. Oh, okay. Why am I so short? Because tallness, the concept, seems to have escaped you, sir. So, in a sense, you have to answer allegorically. You have to think about it to start with in that manner. But to say it's, the mind is not given to receiving instructions and suicide, look at it another way. It's no matter me trying to call it and come up with new names periodically of partisan thought, binary thought, etc. It is simply, at that level, what we ordinarily call the mind, you cannot think transcendentally, which is why so many people, again, will buy into the story that we should be able to. It's just a step away, a course away, a few years of study away, a few more drugs away. Because I've been close. Hell, everybody's close. Everybody's as close as the distance between a grizzly bear's fur and a tuxedo. We're all that close. You're born that close. You were born wanting. In a sense, as soon as you were born and you became conscious, and then you got a mind, you developed your own little personality. You begin to dream of this place that might be real fun. You remember that? The real fun is, God, if I could get out of this fur and this tuxedo, without knowing those terms. After that, you will buy any story. It is life being able to drive the collective progress of humanity with the old everybody knows this, is doing it with the old carrot and the stick trick, except for this. Life doesn't even provide a carrot and a stick. I'm not pointing to life. We know how smart life is. I'm doing this for man, like, huh? Well, it's hard to pull one over on us, right? Can we do it again? After you give up the original dream of finding this real fun place, after you give up the urge, what it amounted to, once you begin to think, almost the first thing you want to do was think transcendentally. As soon as you begin to think, what in the hell am I doing? That is thinking. What is this? You know? God, is this weird? And you don't have to know anything else unusual. After that, everyone just understands thinking, or they understand at least once in their life, back at that time, that thinking is in a class by itself. Thinking is nothing at all like eating and going to the bathroom and hitting your sister in the head with a rock. You know, just thinking is different. And the thing is, it is so different, you know, this has got to be a prelude to something really, and you find out that nobody else knows what this means. They go, you know, shut up and go back to hitting your sister if it takes it, but, you know, quit bothering me. But after that, those who do not completely give up, you will, because life, what I was about to back up so that you went, if you missed my dramatics, is after that, life can drive collectively, can make everyone stay in line, the majority of people, the sane, civilized middle class of the world. They can keep them marching along our pace, our tempo, marching along as they should, while actually using only the old carrot and the stick. Everyone does know that, don't you? It's supposed to be. There's the two great ways to run, you know, a donkey team. Using donkeys or asses as being somewhat less insightful than, let's say, horses. And the thing is that assuming that the driver of the donkey team is smarter than the donkeys, that's, you know, you got to have that. That's one of the basic premises to get this whole operation going, is you got to be smarter than the horse. So, at any rate, so if he is, the classic way is to get the donkeys going without actually furnishing them anything. Without feeding them, it's the stick and the carrot. The stick, of course, is the easy way. You just beat them on the rump and keep them going. And if they finally get used to that, they won't do it. Then this guy that was smarter than the donkeys, he had one carrot. He's not going to feed them. He's got the carrot, and on the stick he has a string also. If he gets tired beating, he ties the carrot to the string, and it's real long, and he holds the stick in front of the donkey, and the donkey forever then begins to, you know, because the carrot's right there. A few more steps and he'll get it, right? What I was trying to point out is once men give up the idea that it's possible, or that they should, or that it would be worthwhile to try and pursue an attempt to think beyond the mundane level, beyond any ordinarily conceived of and collectively agreed upon reality. After that, once they give up, life runs the whole donkey team by the stick and the carrot, except I point out, life even does it better than that. It still runs you by the stick and carrot method. You know, either this or a promise never fulfilled, the carrot out in front of you. It's one or the other. Except life to man does it even better. It does the old stick and carrot trick without even using a stick or carrot. That's what I was saying, huh? Because, you know, my insinuation, at least a donkey, as dumb as he is, you were going to laugh about that they would fall for the stick and carrot trick. Maybe, except with a donkey, at least you got to have a damn stick and a carrot for them to fall for it. Well, man, you don't even have to have it, and they still go for it. That was, I was trying to get past the continual, me using the terms like the mind, the difficulty in trying to think in some way transcendentally or outside the physical, ordinary limits, is because the mind is not operational, it's not given, it's not constructed to receive instructions about committing suicide. And it's not just that it would make it suicidal, it's just an allegory, obviously. Because the real point blank fact is, why is it difficult for the mind to think transcendentally? Because it can't. Oh. Does that qualify as difficult, or does that fit the definition? When does it seem sticky? When does it seem iffy? When does it seem problematic? You mean difficult? Yes, difficult. Even hard? Yes, hard. For the mind to think transcendentally. All right, you want the fast answer, the direct one out of this other stuff. Yeah, what's the real answer? Because it can't. Now see, that's the sort of thing at a different level that life would use on ordinary people that fits into my description of using the stick and carrot method without even having to bother with the stick and carrot. I guess I couldn't resist. I was afraid some of you were about to catch on, and so I skated off the ice. I mean, even though it is going to be that festive time of weather, some of you, I was afraid to begin to pirouette and do little figure eights. I skated right off the ice right into the lobby of Rockefeller Center while still on skates. Ice skates. Well, it's a short step, if you could follow what I was trying to point out, I was going to leave it, that life, in a sense, does that same thing that you laughed when I said the real answer would be, or a better point-blank answer. Someone said, why is it so difficult to think transcendentally? Why is it so difficult for the mind to do it? Because it can't. Ah, okay. Life does that to humans, but in a different manner. It does it sort of on this basis. You don't know what to do with your life, and life slips you a free ticket to go see Man of La Mancha. A local version, a road version with real bad acting, but you don't care because you don't know it. Does anyone follow? Why can't I beat unbeatable foes? Would you repeat that? Well, as many of you know who've been around, I have pulled that out many times about dreaming impossible dreams and fighting unbeatable foes. That sounds great, on paper for the 1400s, for knights, or even for you today if you've still got the mentality of the 15th century. But there's actually more to it. That is what I was talking about. That's why I tried to slip it in on you. That is life answering of men saying, well, why is it that I can't blah, blah, blah? If it was anything transcendental, I hate to keep just quoting myself and limit to that. Anytime men say, why can't I, and they try to describe something extraordinary, at least to them. Why can't I live the life that I'm just sure emotionally I should? Why can't I see past my own limited thought? Why can't I get free of my own opinions? And it says all that, and life answers, but not this crudely. No. What life says when it says, why can't I do this? Life says, because you can't. But it doesn't say that. It says here, and it slips you a pass in to see that cheap road version of Man of La Mancha that's just coming through your town. Because there's always one coming through your town. Some of them are known as churches. Some of them are known as bars, drug dealers, mini strokes, resignation to habit, even TV. I don't know. Mortal reports. Not changing the subject, believe it or not. The title, Mortal Reports, Two Types. Calibrated Surveys and Anecdotal. I think I'll read this one because there's more to it than just to elicit a laugh, and you might see now how it was tied in. Although it doesn't appear on the surface, I know, to convey much information. Why do I say that I know it doesn't? It does. I'm just speaking for you to give you a way out. The backbone of life's merry men in tights, I think they're known as sometimes. The backbone of life's merry men and stalwart warriors are those who eat, drink, make a bit of mischief, and think no more about it all than is minimally necessary. It can sound as though that's cut pretty simply and directly. But what is the backbone of life? No matter what group, as you should know by now, it's quite easily, if you were now in the world of academia 10 hours a day, or if you were in the arts, unless you're really interested in, which is nothing wrong, but whatever you're doing, if that's who you stay with, you forget what the backbone of life is. And the backbone of life are not painters and celloists and philosophers. The backbone of life's merry men, the stalwart troops that hold this army of humanity together, are not those. They are, I gave you a nice, simple, direct description, but there's more to it. There are those who will eat, drink, make a bit of mischief, and then think no more about it than is minimally necessary. From those in the kind of groups that mention supra, it is quite easy from their view to condemn this. Like, well, you're right. That's what the hoi polloi is. That's what the masses are. That's what's wrong with humanity, is that they will not think any more than they have to. And I guess they've been watching this. They can say, well, in fact, you've been talking about it. Yeah. I may have been talking about it, but hell, don't take it seriously, sir. Calm down. What is the backbone of life? There are those who will eat, drink, make a bit of mischief, and then think no more about it all than is minimally necessary. And yet, cannot they, with a certain bit of prodding perhaps, be made to feel a certain amount of the new little death, as I described it, guilt? That, you don't think much. I guess you're right. I've noticed you. I mean, you're my brother-in-law, and I've thought about it. You seem to be pretty sharp sometimes, but you realize all you do, you go out there and you work there at the body shop, 6 days a week. You come home, you drink 5 or 6 beers, you'll eat, and sometimes you'll stay there with my sister, knock off a piece, and then you'll go down to the bar and you'll stay there until midnight. That's about all you do. That sure is easy to go, well, that's just shocking. That's what's wrong with the civilization, blah, 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 blah. Just don't fall too far out of touch. That is the backbone. It has been the backbone. It continues to be el backo. But wait a minute, isn't there more to that than that? Yeah. Probably. How a bear in a tux could see, if he could see past the time that the tux is due back. That's the heading. Maybe I should. Here is the context. Here is the, after survival, all bets are off. After survival means that the bear has got on a tuxedo. After survival, all of you are in that classification. The way this is written is after survival, dash, and then the 4 words, all bets are off. The first part, after survival. First off, that part of the sentence, everybody's there. Everyone's seeing this. Everyone hearing this. Everyone is past that. You're somewhere on the other side of the dash looking at it this way. After survival, you are a grizzly bear in an evening gown or a tux. I don't want to get into your personal life and how you dress. What some of you may be wearing under your Levi's, I don't want to think about it. Some of you men. After survival is where everyone is. We got to just get past that. After survival, dash, all bets are off. Would you note that I did not condition this? We could go back now to the one I just read and say ordinary people, those that are the backbone of life's merry men, and those stalwart troops that carry on, that all they do, or all that's required is to eat, drink, make a bit of mischief, and then not think anymore about the whole affair than is minimally necessary. We could say that applies right here. After survival, that's all of them. They work 6 days a week or whatever they do. After that, all bets are off. That my brother-in-law, my fictitious brother-in-law, treats my sister in that shoddy manner ignores the kids. Most of the time he'll see them for 5 minutes and go, hello, and then he tells her, get them to shut up. They're interrupting, trying to watch the scores here on the TV, on the news. Get them kids outside. And you can say, that's not being civilized. It's not. After survival, and they're after survival. Here it is, at 6 o'clock, he worked 10 hours. Here it is Saturday, or Sunday, he worked 6 days that week. So he's past survival. After that, all bets are off. That is, he's as civilized as he's ever going to be. They are as civilized as they're ever going to be. Who do you mean by they? Read my lips. Oh, I'm sorry. They. Anybody other than you or him. They are as civilized as they're going to be. After survival, all bets are off. After survival, there is no accounting, there is no predicting individuals, and there's damn little predicting, even if you could do it. It would be a waste of time. There's just no predicting. There is a useless attempt, an absolute moot, meaningless attempt to try and predict, because after survival, all bets are off. After survival, there are people who you would prefer to live next door to than those that you wouldn't, such as my fictitious brother-in-law. I wouldn't wish him on any of you. I'm sure all of you would prefer to live in an apartment or even in a trailer park next to a celloist in the Cleveland Symphony, as opposed to my brother-in-law who works in a body shop and kills 2 six-packs every day. And consider serious music, some of the George Jones albums from the 70s that had a string section. After survival, all bets are off. Because once you have survived on this planet, today, 2,000 years ago, but right today, which is a continuing bone of apparent philosophical, if not sociological contention still amongst people about how are we going to straighten out society because it's going to hell. It's just getting worse and worse. How old are you? You don't really need to know, do you? Nope. Already guessed. But after survival, which more or less on this planet, unless it's somewhere now that people are absolutely starving, etc., which is not the norm anymore. But at any rate, after survival, any idea, any preconceived notion that life has put in you, that you may have, being the educated person you are. After survival, any predictions, any expectations you have, I don't know, how should we describe this? It's a sure sign like of intellectual zits. You don't understand much. If you have any prediction after survival, you're doomed to a certain, may I say, degree of extremely potential disappointment. Because after survival, which now, again, I will say by and large, is this planet, is everyone on this planet right now, they're post-survival. After survival, all bets are off. That is, there is no predicting, there is no common ground, although people all over the planet, I'm sure you know this, linguistically, culturally, musically, politically, it's been going on forever, but even in our lifetime it's speeded up enough that it should at least caught your attention. Even if you're not a news hound, the whole world is becoming more and more homogenized. So there is that degree of prediction. But still all bets are off because you cannot individually, to any profitable degree, to any degree to be useful to you, that would mean anything, you cannot predict after you've got past the point of survival that you're now civilized. That everybody on this planet, all the bears and the warthogs on this planet now, if they don't have on a tux, they got on some kind of shoddy suit at least, one of those brown jobs that they used to turn out in Moscow. One of those good Eastern European brown suits that. Well, I heard just before the unfortunate downfall of the Communist Party, I understood. I don't know that they had it to the point that their textile industry had reached the point just before that unpleasantness that was almost, they were getting to the point that the quality of the goods was such that some people swore they almost got home from the store before they started falling apart. And then, but at any rate, all the bears, all the hogs, everybody has on a suit now. They're post-survival. But after that, all bets are off says that there is no common ground. There is no solid area to predict how people are going to act. And since you can't, you still have the carrot and the stick without even bother the carrot and the stick, because to some degree everyone is going to have serious questions about what's going on. Because no one believes all bets are off. All Christians believe that all bets are on. It's right here in the Bible. There's the bet. There's the line. You don't have to call Jimmy the Greek. Here's the line. Moses put it down. Jesus put it down. Buddha put it down. Past survival, that's survival, all bets are off. Everybody that's still playing that kind of mental game, how can I be nice about this? They're chumps. Oh, all right. They're ordinary. Then, consider this. Back to something of more importance, perhaps, or interest to you guys. Why is it so hard to think transcendentally? Same reason. Because all bets are off. It's like life said, okay. Life didn't actually do this. I'm just putting words in its mouth. But hell, it's done it to me. It's done it to you. Why not? It's like life said, oh, all right, come here. And it wiped a bear dew off your leg and gave you a tux or a brown suit. And said, all right, get out there in the ballroom and maybe find yourself a female bear. At least hang around the bandstand, have a drink, have a smoke, have, some hors d'oeuvres, do a little bit of mischief. Keep that suit on, take care of yourself, now go on, get out of here. And it's like, there you are, on your own. Post-survival. And you think, now we're getting somewhere. Of course, if someone wanted to think, the question very shortly after that becomes, yeah, but where? Because you find that nobody knows where. That's when you're past the point you should have given up trying to find the fun place. The reason you cannot think at the ordinary level, mentally, transcendentally, is because all bets are off. Everywhere you look, the bets are off. It's only chumps. Now, you know I'm exaggerating. It's ordinary people. It's only the collective. It's only the sane that believe that there is still a betting line, that there is a game that's not rigged, that I will be a Christian, or at least I'll just be a decent person by God. I'll be civilized and care about my fellow man, and it'll release my mind. Life would be proud of you. Man chasing carrots, and if your eyesight is as good as it should be from having consumed that kind of beta carotene, you look and you think, what are those people looking at? They're going, yes, we're on our way. We're Democrats, we're Jews or Hindus, and you think, what is it they're chasing? They say, don't you see it? It's right there. Of course, they're not making fun because, yes, you do see it. You used to do it. You even tried it when you first started asking people, where's that place I used to dream about I thought was so much fun? And finally your parents or somebody gets sick and they say, it's here in our religion. Go to the temple, go to church. Get an education. That's what you need, is more education. That'll do it? Sure. Look at me. I spent 20 years in school to become a doctor. And that'll do it. Oh, yeah. So your father became the invisible carrot.
Yeah.
Tape gone?
Yeah.
So are we.